Hey, Prolific community. Welcome back to the Prolific Hub podcast, a digital archive of all things life and the pursuit of creative entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Aaliyah Cheyenne. This podcast celebrates all of the change makers, way makers, and world builders who are charting their own paths and inspiring others to do the same. We highlight creatives, solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and also discuss everyday life topics. If you've already rated and written a review for the podcast, thank you. If you haven't had a chance to just yet, it's never too late. Reviews help tremendously in the podcasting world, so I appreciate you taking the time to leave one. The best way to discover new podcasts is by word of mouth, so keep sharing the Prolific Hub podcast with your tribe. Be sure to follow the show on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you'd like to show even more support, text the show, send in a voice note, or consider a monthly subscription. See the show notes below for more details. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Prolific Hub podcast. I'm your host, Aaliyah Cheyenne, and I'm so excited today to be joined by my sister, Tasia Marie. Now, all of the OGs of the podcast remember Tasia. Tasia was one of the original co-hosts of the show, and I'm so excited that she's back for this episode to talk more about her creative endeavors, her brand, her art, her clothing line, her jewelry, her vision for her after school program. And we talk a little bit about the larger vision for the Prolific Hub, of which this podcast is named after. So without further ado, let's jump into the episode. This is going to be a fun episode. I'm excited to jump into all of your creative projects and what you got going on. And I'm so glad to have you back on the show. And yeah, I usually jump in with guests with an introduction, but I like my sister, y'all, all of the OGs of the pod know and recognize this face, this voice. So I'm going to leave it there and I'm going to kick it over to you to introduce yourself. I always like to ask guests to let the world know how you want to be seen and known today. So let us know.
Yeah. So, hey y'all, I'm Tasia Marie. I am a former educator. Now I am entrepreneur-ish. Still finding my way. Trying to build my brand out, troiscoeurxviii, or troiscoeurxviii. And it basically consists of art, fashion, and wellness. So that's it. Left the education realm, went into the creator realm, finding myself in this creative realm, and yeah, it's a journey to say the least.
Yeah. And really diving into it more fully, because you were still creating while you were educating. You're just kind of doing it more as like a side thing. Like many people start off doing like a side hustle, and now you're doing it as the main thing, which is really cool. So how has the transition been from like education and teaching to now pursuing your craft full time?
Oh man, like a roller coaster. To be honest with you, like some days are highs, like a lot of days are lows. Some days are like, what the fuck am I doing? Do I need to tuck my tail and go back to teaching? Yeah, it's a hell of a journey. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've doubted myself a majority of the time in what I've done, but I just keep reminding myself that God don't make no mistake. Like, everything happened the way it happened for a reason. So I just need to get on it, be on my shit. Like my creative shit, because now I'm actually given the opportunity, the space, the time to create, which I had that like roadblock, that creator's block while I was teaching. And I still feel like I kind of have a block, but I'm now like, I'm starting to get back into the flow of things. So it's different. It's a journey. It's a very questionable journey. I ain't gonna lie. I've applied to a teaching job or two. because I'm thinking like, damn, I may need to go back to work and like still do this on the side, but I need something coming in while I'm putting out. So there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
think part of it too is like, and we've talked about this before, like you and I, but I also hear it a lot among a lot of entrepreneurs. Like, we kind of live in a time now where it's glorified a lot. And in a lot of ways, we're seeing a lot of people who have already done this for a long time before we're seeing like their successes now. But the way it reads is that anybody could do it tomorrow. And sometimes it
Right.
takes a little bit more time for sure. And it is a journey. Like every entrepreneur or creative I've spoken to or seen talks about how things ebb and flow, like it comes in waves, and it's about learning to be in flow and ride the wave and um doing what you need to do. But I think it is a really good opportunity to just pour into your creative bag and like have the space and the freedom to create, because child, a 9 to 5 will drain all of your energy. You got to have a certain type of commitment and dedication to really
Man.
build something like in tandem with working like a primary job, like using
Word.
your 5 to 9 or your like 6 to 9 in the morning, whatever. Wise, like it's a balancing act. And
Yeah.
we don't live in a society that makes it easy to start your own thing. So I commend you for jumping into your creative bag and like trying something new and starting your own thing. So,
Yeah. Gracias.
yeah. So, I feel like, girl, I I don't know if it's like a speech impediment or what it is, but every time I try to say trois core,
You got it.
did I say it right? Okay.
Yes.
I feel like I have to think about it. So
Twacor.
if you see me pause every time, it's because I'm thinking about it in my head. Okay.
Oh
So
man.
let's take it all the way back to the beginning. What inspired you to create Trois Core XVII? What inspired you to create it? Like, what was kind of the kickoff that was like, I want to start doing this art. I want to start doing this clothing line. I want to start doing all this stuff and put it under the umbrella of this brand. What was the inspiration?
Word. So Twacor was the initial brand. Trois, like 3 is my favorite number. Trois is French. Core is heart. So like 3 heart, sweetheart, little play on words. Twacor XVII is the rebrand. So that's the rebrand that I kind of kicked off last year. But what inspired me to start it was actually just creating my own abstract piece. Like it was a time in 2018 when I first thought of the brand, where I was just having a really low moment, and I got a canvas and I just bought like 5 different colors. And I painted like some real abstract shit. And when I posted it, everyone was like, yo, that's so dope. That's so this, that. I was like, oh, wow. People really like my weird shit. Like, okay. So I just started like creating. I actually sold a few pieces, like was commissioned to create a few pieces. So I was like, okay, I think this is something that I could do. I always wanted to do a clothing line. Like ever since I was younger, I always used to like draft little shirts and shit. So I was just like, hey, Twacor, let's do a t-shirt line. Um, I tried my hand at a t-shirt line, but I wasn't really being serious about it. I just created a few pieces for myself. And that was it. But like now with the rebrand, it's art, fashion, and wellness. So of course the abstract art is still there, which I need to get back on. Uh, the fashion would be what I have now. So currently I'm only selling like short sets. So it's the tee and the short. And then I also have tees. But in the future, I do plan to build out like sweatsuits, 5-panel hats, crew necks, hoodies, all of that good stuff. I actually want to do like a full blown fashion line. I just need to I need to get with the right folk. And then wellness. Everyone needs wellness in their life. And wellness is, what are you doing to keep yourself uplifted? So I wanted to make sure in the brand Twacore, it's three. So art, fashion, wellness. And the wellness
Mhm.
can consist of art, it consists of fashion. I have an after school program that I want to kind of I I was going to pilot it when I was in my former lifetime of teaching.
Mm.
However, that environment got a little bit too hectic for me, so I left before I could actually pilot it. But I have the curriculum written out and everything. I have a pitch that I will be emailing out to different principals and different schools here. So it's an after school program that focuses on SEL skills, social emotional skills for kids. So using art as a leverage for social emotional skills. How do you express yourself? Like a lot of people don't know how to express themselves verbally. So artistically, you can express yourself. Like everyone's like, "Oh, I'm not an artist." Nigga, have you been to a museum? Like I'll be going into museums and seeing dots on canvases, and I'm like, "That's deep. That's deep." Like, so we're all artists. There are various ways for us to express ourselves, and I just want to show young adults and adults as well that we can express ourselves through art. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be a Picasso, or you don't have to know how to draw portraits. Like, but how do you express yourself through art? Any form of art at that.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like the nature of the human spirit is creative. So I love that you're like pulling in and enveloping like all of these different qualities and areas under the brand. I think
Yeah.
art is important. I love art as like a spectator and as a creator in my own way, but I also think wellness is so important, like emotional wellness and like being able to self regulate and co regulate with others, like with community, is
Yes.
really important. And fashion is fun. Like a lot of these kids, all they care about is what they wear. So I
Exactly.
think it's so, yeah, I think it's so cool to like fold all those different elements in and tie it into the brand, like the qua representing three and then having those three pillars is really
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, I love that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Of
Um,
course.
okay, so we kind of talked about like what inspired you and what kicked off even wanting to create the brand and doing all of these things. So I think that's really cool. But I would love for you to talk about, you know, just kind of what it feels like to create. Because one thing I'm really focused on these days is being present. And I feel like in the moment of creating something with your own hands and like, you know, putting something out into the world that you thought about in your mind, that you actually
Yeah.
made material is really cool. So, can you talk a little bit about your process of creating and like what that actually feels like when you're doing it?
So like my process is all over the place sometimes. Like I said, I've definitely had a creator's block. So that I've recently let go of basically all my art.
I
The
still have
definition.
6 pieces hanging up in my house.
Yeah, so like, yeah, I'm glad that you still have those pieces. I have like very few pieces. But I literally let go of all my art. So that was almost what am I trying to say? That was like a release
Take your
of
time.
some sort,
Hmm.
right? That was definitely a release. But like when I create, I don't know, sometimes it comes to me in a dream. Like I'll wake up in the morning and just be like, for example, like a few weeks ago, I had a dream that I created these tapestry pants, like swapcore tapestry pants, like with the fringes on the side. Like I had the whole fit, and I was at homecoming, Howard homecoming. So I was like, I woke up and I was just like, oh shit, tapestry pants, tapestry crop top. Like I just wrote it down, like, okay, I gotta create that. So now I gotta get that tapestry blanket created so I can create my pants. But like other times, it's literally just me being like, okay, I have a lot of shit on my mind. Let me just sit in front of the canvas and put my paintbrush to it with the color, and however it goes, it goes. And then other times it's kind of like, okay, well, I do have this series that I want to work on. For example, like I had the troiscoeurxviii heart series where I wanted to do a whole bunch of different hearts, you know, my logo, but with a whole bunch of different backgrounds, or the astrology series that I will be bringing back. The creativity, I should say, it just comes from pure randomness. Like, it's a bit of chaos in my head, but it's artistic chaos. So I just try to put that to the canvas or put it to my clothing or try to just write it out.
Yeah. I feel like part of what I'm actually hearing, like the feeling is that it might feel like a little bit therapeutic. Like, I know you mentioned the word release for like letting go of pieces, but I imagine there's like a release that happens too when you're actually putting paint to canvas.
Yeah,
So I think that's cool too. And yeah, I feel like art can definitely be an expression for like sorting through what's in our minds and in our heads. So I think it's a cool way to channel that energy
yeah,
out. Um
definitely.
and like make something of it. And you shouted out Howard because you are a Howard graduate, but one thing
Ain't
I
you?
yeah, I was gonna do it, but then I'm like, I didn't go to Howard, so I don't want anybody to come. I was like, I didn't graduate from there. But you did. And something I remember about like pieces you've done in the past, which you may or may not bring back, I don't know, is that you did pieces for different sororities and fraternities. And I know there were some complexities around that, but I imagine that if those things are sorted out, that's something you could channel and do again for anyone who might be listening, who might be, in a frat or in a sorority. So that's something that
Definitely. Those are a few commission pieces. Like, a few people came to me and they were like, "Hey, you know, I wanted to do something different for my soror, you know, or for my frat brother. Like, can you create something?" And I'm like, "Hell yeah, I could create that." Which I had a whole lot of fun creating those pieces, but you know, with
Mhm.
licensure and all of that other stuff. Like, when I posted it to Etsy, um, somebody tagged me. Like, I had actually sold a few pieces to a few Sigmas. And then like after my third piece sold, like Etsy wrote me and they were like, you know, copyright infringement. And I was just like, oh shit. Okay, sorry. Got to take all this down. But if you do want something custom made for your soror or your frat brother, you know, hit me up on the side.
Yeah, but also being mindful of these friggin' loopholes that people have to jump through just to be creative is something to keep in mind. But I imagine that
Yeah,
like if stuff like that gets sorted out, that's something you could do again. And if anyone who has those pieces still, or anyone who may get pieces like that in the future, it really will be one of a kind. Like it will be really
yep,
unique. You're really not going to get that anywhere else. So
at all. At all.
yeah, that's the dope part about it. So we've talked a lot about all of the different creative avenues that you have with your brand, with your work, from the clothing to the art to the jewelry to the fashion, like all of those things. But what are some like practical things that you've done recently to help further like establish your brand and your business?
So first of all, I finally got an LLC. So
Congratulations.
man, thank you. Got a LLC, got my EIN. Because I actually want to start selling at like flea markets, and I realized like to sell at a flea market, I needed to create an actual business. So I did that, and then also like joining groups. So I've moved to an undisclosed location, um, and I've joined like different vendor groups, different art groups, just to kind of get into those realms, and get my name out, and also paying for ads on like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Like, I'm noticing that yes, I'm paying for ads, and yes, I'm getting views, because like one of my views on TikTok was up to like 5K. But just because you get views doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna get by. So
Mhm.
yesterday I actually went to the tattoo shop. I got my brand tatted on me, my new brand,
Hey.
along with Stay Wet. And like, as I was talking to the tattoo artist about it, because he was like, "What is this? Like, stay wet, troiscoeurxviii." And I was explaining it to him, and he was like, "Yo, like, all you need is like the right person, the right connection, like for your brand to take off. Like a picture with the right
Mhm.
person. Send your art, send your clothing to the right person, and they post it, and
Mhm.
boom, it takes off." And I was like, "Bruh, like that is what I'm aiming for right now, because as much as I'm paying for these ads, like yeah, I'm getting views and I'm getting a follow or two. Um, but I want that to eventually turn into like commission pieces that people are asking for, or even custom clothing pieces that people are asking for.
Yeah. And knowing that like paying for ads doesn't necessarily translate to like support in any real kind of way. So being
Right.
mindful about how you're using your resources in that way is important. But I completely agree with the tattoo artist because I've definitely told you before to send pieces to a couple of people, you know. So I think it's like it's transformative. I do not remember the name of this particular artist. It was a very random TikTok scroll, but the video I saw was talking about how he managed to get his art in front of a rapper and like sneak his way into a party basically that he wasn't invited to, but he just kind of like
Oh,
was like, "Oh, I sent this piece of art to the rapper and you know, I got invited." And somehow he was able to bypass security and everybody else, get into the party, get a picture next to the piece of art with the rapper, and that totally transformed his career. So I definitely
yeah,
think I agree with that. Like getting it to the right person who's willing to share it and put other people on can be transformative. So
right.
I want to witness that greatness happen for you. So
Yeah.
we are counting on
Hopefully
that
that happens
happening.
soon. Look, I'm gonna lean up
We are
with my
counting on
wife,
that.
and especially like Taraji P.
Hey.
Henson, like she's been focusing in, like keying in on like mental
Mm,
health and mental wellness. So
yeah.
I'm gonna definitely see if I could send her a few pieces, like as her
Yes.
collection, and see how we do.
Okay. Let this be an accountability thing.
Hey, for
Let
real.
this episode be an accountability thing. Like Taraji's gonna get some of your art. Okay.
She is.
Um all right. So you briefly mentioned stay wet, but talk to us a little bit more about that. So for folks who don't know what that means, who might be thinking one way, and that's not necessarily the way we're talking about, can you let folks know what Stay Wet is all about?
So Stay Wet is one of my clothing brand lines, and it's basically fashioning mental wealth and mental wellness. So I wanted to play on something sexual, because when people see the shirt, like for example, I'm wearing one right now. So
Hey,
Stay Wet, and everyone's like, "Stay wet, what does that mean?" And I'm like, not what you think. Ha ha ha. So the WET actually stands for wild, emotionally intelligent, and thriving. So stay wet. How do you stay wet? How do you stay wild? When we think about wild, like we're thinking about young kids being wild. But young kids being wild is, in a sense, is them being free. And when you're free, you're able to be your true self. And when you're emotionally intelligent, you can decipher like what is worth playing on your mental and what is not. So if you're emotionally intelligent, then you're thriving because you're not worried about things that don't have to take up your mental. And I'm I'm saying this as a person who is healing each day. And I come to you
mm-hmm.
1% better than I was yesterday. And I'm not gonna lie,
Mm-hmm.
like I have my moments. Like I'm grown, and we know how to be emotionally intelligent in some situations, and in some, like we just don't. But like, what are you doing to stay wet? Like, how are you taking care of your mental wealth? Because for me, leaving teaching was me staying wet. Like I
Mm-hmm.
knew that it came to a point where I no longer wanted to do it. It didn't bring me joy. It was bringing me down more than it was uplifting me. So
Mm-hmm.
me stepping away was me staying wet. Like I was trying to make sure I was staying wild, emotionally intelligent, and thriving. Not to say that these have been the best periods. But that is one thing that was really tearing me down, that I was able to like really take a step back and be like, I don't need this. I don't need this. And I'm thankful that I have the support system, i.e., you and mommy, that I was able to actually step away from it.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And you actually introduced Stay Wet on a previous episode of the podcast. Like, I think it was like episode 21 when we had come back earlier this year and you introduced it. I think we ended the episode with that. So it's definitely a concept that you put out into the world before and that you're like uplifting and affirming. I love the shirt and I love the concept. And when I think about the wild, I also think about women because I'm in a space now where I'm leaning more into women who are in their like creative bag and their free bag and their wild woman embodiment bag. So when they're wild, I also think about, you know, just a liberated woman or a liberated person too. So I love that too. And you already know I'm super supportive of like the emotional intelligence component because that's super important. And just what does thriving look like to each of us as individuals? Like thriving look different to all of us. Like I know I'm thriving when I wake up with ease. I got a plan for my day. I'm not stressed or worried about certain things because I feel good. I know I'm not thriving when I'm off balance. So I think that's so good and I love that. And thank you for sharing one of the ways that you've embodied that by walking away from an environment and a situation that no longer served you in that season and pursuing other avenues. And, you know, I think that's important. What are some other sort of like just habits or practices that have been supporting you to stay wet?
So I've actually caught myself journaling more and not even necessarily writing because I realize like writing, I'm like, yo, as a society, we've moved so far when it comes to technology. Like writing now actually hurts my damn hand when I'm journaling. So half the time I want to journal and I'm just like, my hand hurts. So I've been journaling in GoodNotes, like on my computer.
Okay. Yeah.
In addition to journaling, like jewelry is also a part of the fashion. So I've been creating like beaded jewelry pieces. Um, just trying to create, honestly. And I wanted to move like I wanted to be around beach, water, palm trees. So on days when I'm feeling like super duper stressed out, I have an umbrella in the back of my car and a mat. So I'll literally just drive to the beach, stake my umbrella, lay my mat out, and literally just sit there and look at the wave, listen to the waves, look at the waves. I'm not really fucking with the water though, because the shark's been on 10. Like I'm good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just getting out there, trying to be near water, trying to create, journaling, um, rewatching old ass shows. I'm currently on How to Get Away with Murder.
Girl, I went through that. It's Scandal, How to Get Away with Murder.
Yes,
Queen Sugar now.
Scandal. Like I'm just like I'm about to start rewatching Handmaid's Tale again because that's exactly where we're going. So I just want to be prepared.
Where we've been and where we're going again.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's really it.
Yeah.
And just
I
trying
love
like
all of those.
honestly really trying to sit my emotions and not sit my emotions in a negative way because I can really get to a really negative space and I can sit my emotions and just be a festering little piece of shit. But like actually recognizing my emotions and like being able to pull myself out of it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Feeling your feelings. I'm in that era too. I also love all of those habits. Like if I journal, it has to be paper. You know, I created one. Like I use mine, I use others. It has to be paper. But I totally get like the digital era that we're in. I think iPhone also released like a journaling app too. So if you're using you can use GoodNotes, you can use the journaling app, like just in iPhone, whatever, your notes app, whatever works for you.
Yeah.
Like I have moments where I don't write anything. I might make a voice note on my phone and like, listen back to it later, like just thoughts. So I think just getting those things out is really cool. And I definitely feel like being in water is 110,000% a spiritual experience if you let it be. Thinking about floating, even if I'm not floating, thinking about how I feel just floating in water and like being just surrounded by it and like staring at the sky is a spiritual experience to me. So I know the importance of that. Just the sound of the water, the ocean is glorious. So I get it.
Yes. Yeah. Even though it's summertime now, more bodies are at the beach, but still, like I found, like I dropped a pin too. Like I found a perfect part of the beach where like not too many people are there and the parking is free. I'll be out there.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. I love that. So what are you most excited about in terms of your creative journey right now? I know there are a lot of things in creation underway, all of those things, but what excites you the most about your creative journey in this moment?
My fashion line, man. Like I'm actually really excited about this fashion line because this is something that I've been thinking, like plotting on for so long, and now it's finally coming to fruition. No, I may not have 100K sales. I may not have any sales, but the fact that I've not yet, but the fact that I've been able to actually create it, like I found vendors, because initially it was literally me making like this shirt that I'm wearing. I literally bought the fabric and made it myself. And after making like 4 of them, I was just like, nah, it's got to be an easier way. So finding vendors that actually sell what I want or close enough to what I want, then I can tailor it. And also the jewelry piece. Like I'm excited. I made a few beaded bracelets. I'm getting into necklaces. I'm gonna get into earrings and all that other cool stuff. But jewelry is another thing that I do want to get into.
I love that.
Yeah.
Sounds really fun and really cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you for that.
Gracias.
All right. So we talked a little bit about all of those different elements of your campaign, like say what, your curriculum, like all these different things are under this umbrella, this vision, this legacy that you're really building, because creativity can be legacy too, like something that stays behind long after we're gone, like something that shifts the culture. So I think just the social emotional learning element, and tying art into that of your work, like that through line for yourself is a healing modality, but also for the people who interact with your work. And I think that's legacy building.
Yeah.
But we also talked about another vision once upon a time on the podcast. And we gotta talk about it. We gotta talk about it. So, and we talked about it a little bit before. So let's just revisit it a little bit now. So we talked about the film before, something that we had dreamed up and that may still be one day. Will's part of why, girl, I have my moments where I'm trying to get out the country, so that's another episode, another conversation. But we also talked about just, the rebranding of this pod, like to align with that vision for the larger hub. So we had talked about the hub being a space for creatives, like a safe haven for creatives, so that people who art could come and do their art and display their work.
Yeah.
Who podcasts could come record their episodes. People who write who are authors could come and have a quiet space to write. Just creating this massive hub for all kinds of creators. And then we talked about it, and then we didn't talk about it too much. So I guess just to revisit it, like the status is that it's still
It is. It's definitely still a vision. Like, and I ain't gonna lie, like some mornings I wake up and I'm like, God, I know you do not give us visions bigger than what we can do, but what the fuck? Like, I really like when I stopped teaching, like, and I came your way, I really was like, yeah, we about to get this hub started. Da, da, da. And then like the reality started to set in, and it was like, shit, we don't come from a line of millionaires where we could just lean on a family member and be like, hey, can you give me a little loan of $1 million so we can like get a place and get this started? But nonetheless, like I really still believe that the hub will happen. Like I still want a storefront. Like even if it's just a storefront that's slight, because the smallest thing can build to something bigger eventually. So even if it is just a storefront where niggas come and like pick up art pieces and buy shirts, like I still would love to have a room in the back where a few nights out of the week there can be art classes, and a few days like there are podcasters coming in and recording, or even artists coming in and recording their music. um it it's still there. Like I see it.
Yeah.
So like we've branched off, but it's still under the umbrella.
Yeah. I like that. I think also too, just given all of the changes and transitions this year too, it's, to be honest, it's kind of hard to really 150% commit to those kind of endeavors and creative projects when our minds are like worried about other things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to commit to that. But like I've told you before too, and I'll also say it here, I just also feel like we needed space to work on our own creative projects because it's a lot to do everything one time. It's a lot
Yeah.
to start multiple things at one time. Like,
And very
and I
overwhelming.
have heard very overwhelming, but I've also heard serial entrepreneurs say, gotta get one thing off the ground and get it off the ground well before you start worrying about the next thing. And I also just think, like, in this moment and in this time, it's important that we get other things off of the ground first and then revisit that, because sometimes if you take on 50, 11 things at one time, it's hard to do one well and successfully. And
they'll all fail.
But I still stand by the fact that like that is a vision that I also like desire and I want to make a reality and make real. And like I've said before on this show too, I want a nice, well-oiled machine that works, that I don't necessarily have to be there all the time after a certain point once it's off the ground and doing well, because I want the flexibility and the freedom to do other things and be other places. So I think about that a lot too. But yeah, it's still all under the same umbrella. And even with this podcast and with this show, it's still like a digital archive of creators, of entrepreneurs, of solopreneurs, of people who are working on self-improvement and all of those things in life. So, we'll at least have some presence in the digital space before the physical thing happens. But
for real though.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely will.
I love that.
So
yeah,
we're building and making these other pieces stronger before we come and like pour into the hub. So we'll get there.
1000%. We will. Still got a draft business plan somewhere. So we'll revisit that at some point. So I would love to know, like, what is this current season of life teaching you right now as you're pouring into your creativity, as you're in the throes, transition? Like, what is life
Yeah.
teaching you right now?
Life is teaching me a lot about myself. Like,
Mm.
I'm not a bitch ass nigga. Like, I'm stronger than I like I'm stronger than I think I am. Like, for real.
Mhm.
Because it's definitely been a mental wealth journey. Um,
Yeah.
because I've had quite a few lows, and like there are a lot of days where I'm just like, woe is me. Like, what am I doing? What is the purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I even here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I find myself asking myself that question a lot more often, like, why am I here? But there's a reason. And I've been discovering just more about myself, like more about my creativity, more about my tenacity, and a whole lot about myself. Like, when I tell you, like, I've been trying to sit in my emotions and figure things out, like even relationships, like I've just been trying to look outside of myself, um
Yeah.
and actually realize my faults and what I can do better to move forward, and not trying to
Yeah.
sit in guilt and pity, but trying to use that to fuel me to move forward.
Yeah.
So I'm still learning. And there's this next tattoo that I want to get. It's a Japanese belief. It's called Kaizen. So stating
Yeah.
like every day we're just getting better, even if it's 1% better. Like every day
Mhm.
we progress, we do better. So that's it. Like, so some mornings I wake up and I'm ready to like fuck the world, like a walking erection, right? In a good way. Um, and I love this. And then other days, like I'm just like laying there, like, okay, I woke up again. What I'm about to do today? Okay.
Mhm.
But like realizing that there is a higher purpose and there is a reason why I'm here. Like, and actually, a few of my former
Yeah.
students, like a few more of my former students, have been hitting me up, and I realized, like, damn, Tasia, you kind of did have an impact. Like, they
Yeah.
did actually
Yeah.
listen. They did actually listen, and like, they actually did like you. Nah, like, because my last year in teaching, that was very hard for me. Like, I was literally
Oh
being
yeah.
bullied
Yeah.
by a student,
Ye-
um,
Yeah.
their friends, and it was just like, what the fuck, man? Why am I doing this? Like, I'm already dealing with shit outside on my own, and then I come to work
Mhm.
and I have to deal with this. Like, fuck this, fuck
Mhm.
these kids. And I really went through that period. But now I'm just like, damn, like, no, it's not fuck these kids. Like, I really was having a moment and I really need to step away. Not to say that I necessarily want to go back to teaching, especially not where I'm currently at. I don't want to teach here, especially not health. Like,
Mhm.
I was so like in DC, I taught human sexuality. Like, it was such an open range. Like, I'm learning to appreciate DC, uh teaching in DC versus teaching
Mhm.
elsewhere in the South,
Yeah.
because you are more open and more free to teach things. Like, you know, you can't even say gay here. So
Hey, oh God.
yeah,
Oh,
it's different.
yeah. It's
But
different.
yeah, I'm slowly but surely learning my power, um learning who I am. This season is really about realizations and growth.
Yeah. I love that. I think it's also like just taking into account like whatever the circumstances may be, like whatever you're processing, whatever you're feeling. And as you're sitting with that, like working through that with support or on your own, like, as yourself is really important. And being mindful how that like energy exudes, because sometimes when we're not like feeling at our peak or at our top of our game or at our best, like that translates a lot to,
Yes.
the environment around us or the people around us. So I think this season is also like leaning into that. I feel like I'm also personally in my own season. I say this all the time on the show that I'm like trying to learn more about embodiment and like sitting with my emotions and my feelings in my body instead of trying to like immediately suppress them and get over them. Like actually sit in it and feel it, because that's important. Even when it's
Right.
scary, even when it's not great, even when it's chaotic, even when it's
Man.
dark, like allow myself to feel it, because I'm realizing that at my big age, feeling certain feelings feels real foreign to my body because I hadn't done that for so long. So when I
Yep.
sit in certain emotions or feelings, it actually feels like terrifying. Like sometimes it feels like the world is going to end because I just don't know how
Yeah.
to regulate because I haven't allowed myself to do that before. And now I'm like
Yep.
exercising that muscle to be able to
Yeah.
do that and know that I can survive it and it's not the end of the world.
Right.
you know,
Word.
Even when it's, the scary things or the hard things or the angry things, like whatever the case may be. So
Yeah.
season is teaching us a lot, but I commend you. Like we set out on a mission for 2024 and this year to like pour into our creativity and our bags. I commend you for really doing that for yourself, really doing that for your
Yeah.
clothing line, your jewelry, your art, and like all of that. So that's really exciting.
Thank you, boo. I commend you too, for real. Like, because the podcast,
Thanks.
you've really done a tremendous job. Like, I was just like, I don't want to do the pod anymore. Like, but you've really taken it and made it yours. And I truly love what you've done, the vision. Like, I see what you were talking about. But I truly
Yeah,
feel like
thank you.
that was your journey to take.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I feel that way too for sure. I say all the time I probably wouldn't have started by myself if like we all hadn't like started together, but
Yeah.
I feel like throughout the course of it kind of became more and more apparent to me that I was probably most interested, like most committed to like
Yeah.
really doing it and like growing it. And with all of us starting it together, that created the journey for me to be able to do it now. So everything happens
Yeah.
for a reason. And I think, I've spoken about the evolution many times and it will continue to evolve because
Yeah.
who knows, bro? Like sometimes I look at these other shows and they're like at episode like 100 and something or 300 and something. And I'm just like, I have a lot of ideas. I don't know that they amount to like 100 and something, but you know, I'll do it for as long as I
Yeah.
feel called to do it. So thank you. So I would love to know like what advice you might have for a fellow creative as someone who has taken the leap of faith, as someone who has jumped into the unknown, for another creative out there who might be listening who's considering taking the leap of faith, jumping into the unknown, what advice would you offer them?
Um, could be like Nike and just do it. Like, I'm like I said before, like I'm thankful I have the support system that I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and mommy have definitely made it easier for me to just be like, I can step away from teaching,
Mm-hmm.
and dive into this. Like, there's been no judgment from you nor mommy, and you two are my support system. So that's all who I really care about when it comes to opinions. Um, but like do it. Like it doesn't matter. And I know I find myself saying a lot like at my big age, like I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Sometimes we have to forget what society is telling us we should be doing and when we should be doing it and at what age, and do what the fuck
Mm-hmm.
you want to do. Like, because we're constantly living our lives for either societal norms or like familial norms or what other people
Mm-hmm.
want us to do. Most of us aren't really living in our truth. So
Yes.
if it is in your bone, like if it's in your mind every day to create, like, and you have the space and the opportunity to step away from your 9 to 5, do it. Like, do it and dive fully into your creativity. Now, take a break after you step away from your 9 to 5, because I definitely needed time to decompress after I stepped away from the teaching realm. Um,
Yeah.
but just do it. Like, it's nothing but the time. Like, only God knows what's going to happen in January. Only God knows what's going to happen in November. And only God knows what's going to happen come January. So we have nothing but right now to actually do what we want to do. So if you are a creator, please be creative. Don't let that 9 to 5 stifle that creativity. Because there's a space for all of us. Shit, I'm looking at work from home jobs now just so that I can still create and be at home while I'm creating. Like I said, I've applied for a few teaching jobs, but not at the top of my list to teach here.
Yeah.
But if I can get a work from home job, that would be amazing. So I can
Yeah.
still create, while I'm in my home space.
Yeah. Yeah. 1000%. And like, you know, if you're committed to creating, like doing it in tandem with whatever else you have to do to survive this capitalist hellscape, um,
Yeah.
is important. Like if you have to do it around that job, that's okay too, until eventually a point,
Yeah.
hopefully, you're able to pour fully into your thing and really grow that
Yep.
and build that, and it supports you and meets all your needs. So I love that advice. I love all the little like yo, I've been cracking up in this episode because you keep saying like you keep saying like these little things that are so funny to me. But yeah, I love be like Nike. Just do it.
It's for real. I have it tatted on me. Shit, just do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have
Yeah.
to look down at my leg and be like, bro, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
I love that. Well, any last thoughts, anything we didn't cover that you would love to share about just your brand, your work, anything that we didn't touch on that you want to share?
Um, we pretty much touched on everything, but like just to reiterate, mental wellness is your health. I just want more people to realize that we need to treat our mental health like we treat our physical health. Because if you were sick in the house, like coughing up gook and phlegm and had a temperature of 102, you would take your ass to the urgent care. But a lot of us really just sit in silence, uh, and don't tell anyone. Like when we're feeling at our lowest lows, treat your mental health like you would treat your physical health. Reach out to somebody, talk to somebody. I know a lot of times, like, I don't say too much because I don't want to be a burden on anyone. And a million and one times you have reminded me that it is never a burden, like, to express how you're feeling. So if you're going through anything, like, please find your person and talk to them. Do whatever it is that you need to bring yourself out of that funk. But just keep reminding yourself to stay wet.
Yes.
And not just in a sexual way, okay?
Yes.
But stay wild, stay emotionally intelligent, stay thriving. Like, how do you stay wet? That's really it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that, Boo. You made a dope ass TikTok recently further explaining stay wet. I think I'm gonna add that to the
Oh yeah.
to the episode so people can tune in and like hear it, and make sure that I link it so that they can go see it and watch it as well.
Thank you,
So
boo.
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I guess to end on a high note, what is something that's bringing you joy? Doesn't have to be work related. Something that's making you happy in this season.
Something definitely making me happy. My vicey poo. My
Yes.
doggy. Even though she gets on my last nerve, like a lot of days, like she gets my ass up and she gets me moving. Like, and she just reminds me, like, there's life. So my vicey poo, my Frenchie, is bringing me joy.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I love that. Let people know where they can find you and support your
You
work.
can find me on. You can definitely find me on IG. It is underscore troiscoeurxviii underscore and trois TROIS core COEUR all one word. Or you can just follow my main page. It's trois underscore trois. And I also have a website. It is troiscoeurxviii.com. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Facebook, all under the Trois Core mantra. So yeah, holler at me.
Yes, I love that. And I will make sure to link all of that in the show notes. To close us out, I am going to play that incredible TikTok that you created for folks to listen to. And thank you so much for coming back to the show to share more about what you've been up to.
Thank you,
to talk about all of your creative adventures. So yeah, thank you and love you, and can't wait for this episode to drop.
I love you. I appreciate you.
Yes, I appreciate you too.
I created Stay Wet to solicit conversation, explicit conversations about mental wealth. When you see the phrase stay wet, some minds may go straight to something sexual, and I wanted to use this to my advantage. So let's talk about staying wet. Are you staying wild, emotionally intelligent, and thriving? All pieces to maintain mental wellness. We feel so free to talk about everything but mental wealth. It's like a taboo we just brush under the table. But the same way that Salt and Pepper said, let's talk about sex, let's talk about staying wet. How do you stay wet? When I say wild, wild is attached to being young and free, something we all need to stay true to our core. Being emotionally intelligent means that you make the decisions of what will and won't affect you, which builds on your mental wellness. And if you're wild and emotionally intelligent, you're thriving. All we can do is aim to thrive and make sure we're using the proper tools to stay above. So staying wet is not just a fashion statement, it's a statement about the state of mental wealth. Let's keep the conversation out loud so we can normalize speaking about our mental wellness. So I ask you, how do you stay wet?
Hey friend, if you made it this far, you're a rock star. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. The Prolific Hub podcast is hosted and produced by me, Aaliyah Cheyenne. If this episode resonated with you, please leave a 5-star rating and positive written review. Reviews help tremendously in the podcasting world, so I appreciate you taking the time to leave one. Be sure to share this episode with a friend and follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the Prolific Hub pod on your favorite social media platforms to stay connected. Consider supporting the show with a monthly subscription, or send us your thoughts on this episode via text or voice note. Find all of the juicy details in the show notes below. Catch you on the next episode.